Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to try water marbling for the first time, and for that I picked up this easy marble set because it has a lot of colors and I'm really excited to try this out actually. I always wanted to try this, but I'm not a big fan of using spray paints for it. So let's see how these easy marble colors work. One thing I'm really happy about is that it comes in this cupboard thing, because it just means that the paint bottles aren't really rattling about, because I know that Marble likes to use glass. It's the standard bottle shape they use for most of their paints. And they have some step-by-step instructions with some pictures. The colors don't quite match up what they show, but yeah, every single step is in a lot of different languages, which is quite good. And I'm really glad that we get such detailed instructions actually, because I've never actually done any water marbling at all before. But yeah, all it describes is how you apply the colors to the water, how you dip, and then how you remove the items from the water. And you can see some examples stated. As for the colors, we have this yellow and red. Then we have blue and green. And we also get, which I'm really curious about to try, we get a clear and a black. And I'm especially curious how the clear will look. It has a slightly yellow tint, but I hope it will actually be clear. So let's actually do something with this. Now I got another product I wanted to try out, and that is kneading concrete, or kneadable concrete. Picked this up from a brand where I usually also get my paper clay from, and I thought it would be interesting to try out and make something with this and then dip into the marbling. This was actually pretty easy to mix up. All I did was follow the instructions on the sides about the ratios, and I try to be relatively exact with that, so I'm using the same measuring cups here for everything. And all I did was just get the concrete powder, add some water, and then you're supposed to mix it, and then you're supposed to let it rest for a little while. It takes a little to mix, and it's way less water than you thought you'd add. But in the end it turned into this like crumbly mass. But while we wait for that to soak, let's make a foil bowl, just a standard aluminium bowl, because this will be the base for my project. I don't want a full like concrete thing, because I have the feeling that it might be maybe like deforming under its own weight. And after waiting for a while I mixed again, and it didn't really come together at all, so I put like one more drop of water in there, just a little bit more, and then I started kneading it, and after a while it actually came together. I was really surprised because it didn't feel like that at first, but yeah, I guess it's like a crumbly dough in a way. But it worked out really well, and then once I had like a little ball that I could knead around, it was time to wrap it around my aluminium foil. And since this is Halloween, basically, or the month of Halloween, I decided why not make something Halloween themed, and what's not more Halloween themed than like a carved pumpkin shape. So that is exactly what I'm making, just a little carved pumpkin. I reserved a little piece of it just for the stem and for the top part, but the rest I carefully wrapped around the aluminium foil ball. It is a bit easier to smooth this stuff out with gloss and with water. Now they actually recommend gloss since this is concrete powder, and yeah, that means it has maybe some other chemicals in there or something that are not good for the skin and might dry it out or something like that. I didn't have any problems working this with gloves, luckily. You know, sometimes some clays may stick to the gloves so much that you cannot really work with it. And yes, I'm kind of talking about things like epoxy, sculpt and stuff, because that stuff, when you mix it and it gets onto your glass, is really hard to get off. But yeah, all I did was form a not quite round ball, and then I formed the grooves of the pumpkin. Now I noticed immediately after I set it down, the bottom starts to flatten a bit under its own weight, so it was good that I added the foil ball, because it definitely does make a difference. I hope it will not squish itself too much under its own weight, but I guess for now it will just have like a foot where it can stand on. Then I tried to carve out the eyes, which actually it wasn't that hard at all. You could kind of like flake off the different layers of clay, so like making them 3D and hollowing them out was actually really easy. And I had the fear that it might like collapse a little bit, but it didn't at all. It was very form stable, surprisingly, at least in the mouth and eye area. And all I did was slowly push the mouth outwards, emptying just a little bit of the modeling compound, so to speak. And I tried to like make it more round on the bottom again, because it was flattening outwards again, which was a constant struggle. So it was a little bit hard to hold and simultaneously sculpt. So what I did is I just filled in the bottom a little bit with some of the leftover clays before continuing to sculpt the top, in hopes that when it spreads out, it would spread out more evenly. This might have been because I added a little bit more water, but even after it dried a little bit, I had that problem. I actually dipped my hands in water a little bit before I added the stem part, because the material started to actually be very crackly and not moldable at all. But with just a little bit of water on my hands, it got like really fresh again. So I guess it dries out pretty fast, almost like air dry clays. And it took about 24 hours to practically fully dry. Now the bottom has a slight bit of a unright spot, but it's practically hardened. It's just a bit damp, and that's just because of how I had it sitting. Now of course I need a stick to actually dip it into the hydro marbling fluid stuff. So for that I actually just use hot glue. Since the surface of the concrete is very like rough, I hope it will hold up pretty well. It's actually one thing you can also do for when you have resin projects. When you want to dip something in resin floating and then remove the stick, hot glue is ideal for that. And then all I did was get a large bucket where I didn't mind the edges to get dirty. This is just a large cleaning bucket. And just some, normal cold tap water. I didn't really pay attention to its warmth. I figured though that if it was too warm, it might like set the colors weirdly, because that's kind of what nail polish water does. I don't know if, the chemicals are probably not the same in the paint, but it should react almost the same, although nail polish water hardens way quicker. When I tried to spread this around a little, one of the edges already definitely did harden a little, so I had a little bit of a blob there. But in the end, after just slowly dinking in this cute little pumpkin, it worked pretty well. And as you saw from the beginning, I actually custom mixed the orange, and that worked really well too. So you indeed can mix colors and match, which is super handy because we have the primaries here, which means you can mix a lot of different colors from them that are not included in this set. Now, just dipping a pumpkin was a bit too little for me, so to speak. So I also picked up some 3D printed boxes that I made for a pegboard wall, and I thought, since they have a white background, it would be really nice to try them out. So I dipped them in too. And you might notice me actually removing the marbling color thing from the surface once it's a bit dried, and that's just to make sure, since it basically like sticks together, that it will not like stick to the inside and wrap around everything weirdly while I put the piece out and ruin the outside. And I did just 2 different color schemes, one with the clear one, which is this one, because I was curious how it would look, and yes, it definitely left some white spots, which I'm happy about, and the other one just some other random dark colors. And then the last thing I needed to do after it was cured was paint in the eyes and the mouth of the pumpkin, which was really easy because of the pre-carving. Now, one thing I gotta admit is, of course, you have to remember your equipment will be permanently stained. This stuff is really sticking to the stuff it's on. I tried to scratch a little bit off and it didn't really come off at all from the plastic, even though it's pretty smooth when I dip my 3D prints in there. And so equipment will be definitely stained forever, especially the rims of it. And the other thing is this stuff smells horrendous. It basically smells like spray paint. I bet it's almost the same stuff, just without the spray compressed air stuff, you know, which I guess makes it easier because you don't have the splatters. But yeah, it smells pretty badly, so make sure to use a well-ventilated room, or best to actually do it outside. But in the end, I absolutely loved the results. The marbling on the pumpkin turned out amazing, and the marbling on the boxes too. Of course, I went a bit random with the box colors, but that was also because I was interested if they would get muddy at all. And I have to say, they didn't really get muddy at all. Like, the spots are pretty clean, you can see all of the colors, and even though I had like red and greens and stuff next to each other, they didn't really turn brown or anything like that. Instead, they kept their beautiful marbling, so I'm really happy about that. And overall, this was a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to hydrate more projects of mine, because I think the pumpkin just turned out really lovely. And yeah, this was really fun to try, and I'm glad I did finally manage to try it. And luckily, there's still a lot of coloring left. I didn't use much at all, because you only need a few drops to fill a surface, and I think this is a great way to customize certain projects and things like that. I do want to experiment a little bit more with patterns and all that, and which materials you can dip in, but I think you can also easily dip glass and things like that. And what I saw on other things, people actually use it to like decorate their like white outsides of like soap dispensers and all that stuff. And I think that's a really neat idea. You don't really have to dip it in fully, you can just like dip in the bottom of your object or something like that, and then just remove the sides. And I also really want to try that. And maybe even trying to dip some resin projects in there, and then maybe embed those again in resin or something like that. I wonder what kind of effects that will give me with the swirls. So yeah, I definitely may at some point try that too. But as I mentioned, I had a lot of fun, and I would really recommend this. And of course, there's many videos out there that explain this with spray paints and all that stuff, but I'm happy this wasn't spray paint just because of ease of use. And I think the difference is mainly that you get like splatters, because spray paint, when it hits the air and it splatters out, the like small splatters of paint, they dry up a little bit more in the air. And I think like visually it may make a difference, and it may just need more practice. And this one just was so easy. You just open the container, strip it into the water, and you're done. But anyways, let me know in the comments down below. Have you ever tried water marbling? What are your thoughts about it? What do you think about my projects? And maybe some other ideas of what I should try. And as always, I hope you have a great day. Bye bye!